Welcome back, everyone, to Sip and Talk. Great to have you with us.
Hello again. Always good to be here and chat.
You know, after the holidays, my wallet's definitely feeling a bit lighter. I imagine a lot of folks feel that way.
Tell me about it.
But that's, small potatoes compared to the global economy right now. It feels less like a gentle recovery and more like this intense game of chess, almost, with some really big, bold moves being made.
It really does. A lot of strategy, a lot of posturing. So today, that's what we want to do, try and cut through some of that noise.
Right.
Give you a clear look at the latest on Trump's tariff policies, how that fits into the bigger global picture. And then we really want to get into this idea. Some people are calling it Trump's tariff addiction.
Interesting term.
Yeah, and whether, these constant adjustments, maybe even annual adjustments, could become the new normal. We just want to lay out the pieces so you can think about what it all means.
Okay, sounds good. Let's jump right in then. The immediate news. This trade deal with Indonesia caught my eye.
Yeah, that's a big one. So Indonesia is set to buy, 50 Boeing jets?
50 jets, yeah. Plus a whole lot of other U.S. goods, energy, agricultural products. We're talking billions.
Potentially up to $15 billion in energy, maybe $4.5 billion in ag products. It's significant money.
Definitely. And what's Indonesia giving in return?
Well, they're dropping their tariffs on U.S. exports. Pretty substantially, actually, from 32% down to 19%.
Wow, okay. That's a big drop.
It is. They announced it back in April on their Liberation Day, which is kind of symbolic. They often announce big policy shifts then. But, it's worth noting that 19%, it's still higher than tariffs were before the Trump presidency. So it's a reduction, but maybe from an already elevated point.
Good context. So reset point. And what about specific U.S. products?
Copper, especially U.S. copper, gets duty-free access. That's a nice win for that industry.
Okay. And Indonesia's the fourth country to do this kind of Liberation Day tariff drop. After who?
Vietnam, the UK, and China. So there's a bit of a pattern emerging, maybe?
Yeah. But there's still a question mark, right, about those Boeing jets?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Is this a genuinely new order for 50 jets? Or is it sort of recycling an old, unfulfilled order for the 737 MAX?
Right. And Indonesia hasn't officially clarified that yet.
Nope, not the specifics. So that detail still kind of hangs in the air, makes a difference to the real impact.
Yeah, absolutely. And these kinds of deals, or even just the threat of tariffs, they send ripples everywhere, don't they?
Oh, completely. We're hearing these warnings now, right? Tariffs on pharmaceuticals, on semiconductors, maybe hitting August 1st.
August 1st, okay. And the pharma ones sound particularly intense.
Intense is one word for it. They could start low, but there's potential talk of them soaring to 200%, maybe even 800% within 18 months.
Hey, 100%.
Seriously, yeah. I mean, the clear goal seems to be forcing production, especially from European companies back to the U.S. It's very direct pressure.
Wow. And semiconductors. That's huge, too, because we don't make all the high-end chips here, right?
Not at all. A lot of the really advanced ones come from overseas. So tariffs there would have a massive impact on, everything tech.
So, okay, bring it down to us, the consumer. We're seeing low core CPI data, right? That index that takes out food and energy.
Right, the one that's supposed to show underlying inflation trends.
But even with that these tariff costs are starting to bite, aren't they? I'm seeing it.
Definitely. Prices are already going up for everyday stuff. Clothing, furniture, even toys.
Toys, really?
Yeah, toy prices saw their biggest jump in 4 years. So these global trade winds, they blow right into our living rooms, into our shopping carts. Definitely hits home.
Hits home is right. Maybe rethink that early holiday shopping this year.
Maybe. And this uncertainty, it's not just us feeling it. It's global. Look at the G20 meeting down in South Africa.
What's happening there?
Oh, you see the tension. The EU, for example, they've already got a retaliation package ready, like $70 billion worth.
Just in case.
Just in case the U.S. follows through on a threatened 30% tariff.
Yeah.
And most experts seem to agree. It's not even just the tariffs themselves anymore.
What else then?
It's the uncertainty, the policy whiplash. It freezes businesses. They just don't know what's coming next, so they hold off on big decisions on investments.
That makes sense. Hard to plan long term. What about the WTO, the World Trade Organization? How are they seeing this?
Well, they put out a perspective suggesting they can survive. Basically, as long as the vast majority of global trade, they threw out a number, like 87% isn't contaminated by protectionism.
87%. That sounds high. Like they're saying they can handle the U.S. at 13% going protectionist as long as everyone else doesn't follow.
Pretty much. It suggests they think the system can withstand a lot if the rest of the world holds the line. And, importantly, if the WTO itself undergoes some reforms.
Okay. Strategic moves. Let's switch to tech in China for a second. Jensen Huang from NVIDIA was in Beijing.
He was, yeah. And he was quite complimentary, praising China's AI models as world-class.
Interesting timing, given the U.S. just shifted its policy on exporting AI chips to China, right? Allowing those H20 chips.
Exactly. And that move is widely seen as a negotiating tactic. A negotiating chip, you could say.
How so?
Well, the idea is maybe to prevent China's AI scene from becoming totally dominated by their own domestic players. Keep a foot in the door for U.S. chip makers. Maintain some leverage, maybe.
Yeah, okay. A strategic play to stay competitive.
Right. And connecting that broader picture. Other economies are definitely feeling the pressure too. Japan, for instance.
Yeah, what's the situation there?
Sounds rough.
They're calling it a perfect storm. Their ruling party might lose its Senate majority, Q policy uncertainty. U.S. trade talks are stalled. They've got fiscal worries, debt concerns.
Yeah, stagflation, that dreaded combo.
Yeah, stagflation pressure, stagnant growth, rising inflation. It's pushing up their bond yields, making borrowing more expensive, weakening the yen.
Yeah.
It's a tough spot.
Wow. Really highlights the complexities. And speaking of tricky situations, Australia and China, how are they managing that relationship? It's a real balancing act. Australia's PM, Albanese, was just in China, focused on business and trade, trying to keep things constructive.
But still relying on the U.S. for security.
Exactly, walking that tightrope. And interestingly, a recent global poll actually showed perceptions of China and President Xi improving slightly.
Yeah.
Which is noteworthy in the current climate.
Definitely a shift. And what about India and Taiwan? Any movement on U.S. trade deals there?
Both are actively negotiating, yeah. And seem pretty optimistic. India's looking for something maybe similar to the Indonesia deal. Taiwan's hoping for a deal by that August 1st date as well.
Okay, so lots of moving parts on the trade front. But tariffs aren't the whole story, right? Let's broaden out a bit. What else is happening globally? Europe, maybe?
Yeah, definitely worth looking at Europe. France, for one, is having some major budget drama.
Oh, yeah. What's going on?
Their prime minister basically laid it out, wants to cut public holidays, cap government spending, raise taxes.
Whoa, strong medicine.
And used strong language. Said France is addicted to public spending and facing fatal danger. But the big question is, will it pass Parliament? That's far from certain.
High stakes indeed. And across the channel in the UK, still wrestling with inflation.
Still grappling with it, yeah. The Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, she's talking about reforming bank firewall, those rules, separating retail and investment banking to try and boost growth.
But inflation's still sticky.
Still over 3%, which is above the Bank of England's target. So, yeah, lots of pressure on the central bank about whether or when to cut interest rates.
And there's that debate about European competitiveness, right? Jamie Dimon from JP Morgan was a bit downbeat, but others disagree.
Right. Santander's executive chairman pushed back, saying she sees huge opportunities in Europe, pointing to strong fundamentals, lower debt-to-GDP ratios compared to others, solid banks.
And undervalued bank stocks.
Yeah. So definitely different perspectives on Europe's economic health and trajectory. Not everyone agrees it's losing its edge.
Interesting divergence. And circling back to the G20 meeting in South Africa, any key takeaways?
Well, one notable thing was the absence of some key U.S. officials, like Treasury Secretary Besant. Kind of highlights how many competing priorities global leaders have right now.
Yeah, diplomacy is complicated.
For sure. But South Africa, the host, stayed optimistic. They were hoping for a joint statement, a communique, focused on things like debt sustainability for developing nations and multilateral development.
And the South African central bank governor didn't see the U.S. absence as a snub.
No, he basically framed it as just part of the complex diplomatic dance. So perhaps less drama there than meets the eye.
Okay, so while all these high-level talks and debates happen, there's this other force just completely reshaping industries, right? AI.
Oh, absolutely. It's impossible to ignore.
Let's talk NVIDIA for a second. Its market value is just insane. Can you help put it in perspective?
It's kind of mind-boggling. NVIDIA's market cap is now bigger than Micron and the Abu Dhabi National Energy Company combined.
Wow.
It's bigger than Microsoft, bigger than Apple. Individually.
Seriously?
Think about this. It's almost worth the combined value of Costco, Walmart, and Amazon.
That's staggering.
It really is. And AI's potential to just transform productivity. The momentum from last year is just rolling right into 2025 and probably beyond. There's this huge tailwind, as they say, from all the spending on AI infrastructure.
So even with people maybe worrying about valuations being too high.
Yeah, even with those concerns, it feels way too early to just, abandon ship. The build-out is still happening. It feels like early days in many ways.
Okay. And what about other big tech players? Apple, Tesla.
Well, Apple's going through a really interesting shift. iPhone revenue is still the biggest chunk, but it's down to about 56%.
And services are growing.
Services are growing fast, up to 21% now. That's Apple TV, App Store, all that stuff. They're clearly pushing hard to rely less on just selling phones each season. Diversifying.
Makes sense. And Tesla?
Tesla. Well, their European sales are picking up a bit, but still lagging behind some other brands. The real thing to watch with Tesla, I think, is their progress on autonomous driving.
The self-driving tech and robotaxi.
Exactly. That's where the massive disruption potential lies for them long-term. That's the story to follow.
Okay, got it. So let's pull all these threads together now and tackle that central question we raised earlier, this idea of Trump's tariff addiction.
Right.
Given how much he's relied on them, how frequently adjustments have been made just in 2025, could this become like a formal annual thing, a new way of doing trade policy?
It's a really provocative question. I mean, we've seen multiple adjustments already in 2025 as president. He clearly sees tariffs as a primary tool.
And while there's no official document saying we'll do this every year.
Right, no formal declaration of an annual schedule.
Yeah.
But the pattern, the announcements in April, then more in July, it suggests a real willingness, maybe even a preference, for constant tweaking based on trade talks, security concerns, economic data, whatever.
It feels very reactive, very fluid.
Extremely. Look at the numbers. January to April 2025. The average U.S. tariff rate leaped from 2.5% to 27%.
27% average. That's incredible. Highest in a century, you said.
Highest in a century. And specific examples back it up. Steel and aluminum up to 50% in June. Brazil hit with 50% in July.
And the White House fact sheet from April, what did that say?
It basically confirmed tariffs are staying until trade deficits are fixed, and the president keeps the power to change them, whatever. But yeah, no mention of a fixed annual review.
But then you see stuff online, right? Social media, news report.
Exactly. There was that post on X from @TrumpDailyPost talking about an extra 10% tariff on countries opposing BRICS policies.
Yeah.
Because of their efforts to move away from the dollar, the de-dollarization push.
BRICS being Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa.
Right. And then Bloomberg reported Trump planned to send tariff letters to over 150 countries. It just screams readiness for constant aggressive adjustments.
Okay. And the predicted economic fallout if this keeps up?
It's pretty sobering. The Wharton budget model. They project maybe $5.2 trillion in revenue over 10 years, which sounds great.
But
they also predict a 6% hit to GDP, a 5% drop in wages, and for middle-class families, a lifetime loss of around $22,000.
Ouch. And the IMF.
They've already lowered their global growth forecast for 2025, pointing directly at these increased trade barriers. And we're seeing the specifics roll out. Mexico facing 30%, Canada 35% by August 1st. The EU hit with 20% back in April, imported cars 25%. Even that threat of 200% on imported drugs, it's broad.
Okay. This really sets the stage for thinking about what if? What if this does become more formalized? Let's maybe explore that as a hypothetical, like a thought experiment based on everything we're seeing.
Yeah, like projecting the pattern forward.
Exactly. Let's imagine a Trump's annual tariff adjustment framework. What could that look like, say, starting in 2026?
Okay, so hypothetically.
Yeah, pure what if. The premise could be, starting 2026, the U.S. formalizes annual tariff adjustments, the main goals. Boost revenue, maybe offset domestic tax cuts, protect certain industries, and keep pressure on trade partners.
And how would it work? The mechanism.
Let's imagine a fictional law, the Annual Trade Reciprocity and Revenue Act. It creates a special task force, maybe in the Department of Commerce, the Trade Revenue Task Force.
Okay.
Their job. Analyze trade data every year. Proposed tariff changes by March could be reductions, maybe 5% for allies playing ball, or increases up to 25% for others. New rates kick in July 1st, annual cycle.
Got it. So in this hypothetical 2026, the first year of the formal system, what happens? Maybe
China gets hit with a jump to 20%, citing trade deficits, maybe those BRICS currency moves, the EU. Perhaps they get some tariffs lowered if they make concessions. Semiconductors, strategic sector, maybe boom, 75% tariff.
And the economic impact.
The CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, might project, say, $600 billion in new revenue. Good for the budget, but consumer prices tick up maybe 2-3%. People start feeling it.
Okay, fast forward to hypothetical 2027. Escalation.
Yeah, maybe things heat up. The other BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, South Africa, maybe they face 25% tariffs because they're pushing harder on de-dollarization.
Ooh.
Canada and Mexico. Maybe talks to renegotiate USMCA fail, so they get hit with 40%.
And retaliation follows.
You bet. The EU targets U.S. agriculture. China restricts rare earths exports, hitting tech supply chains. The IMF warns maybe of a 0.5% drop in global GDP because of all this.
And U.S. revenue and inflation.
Revenue might climb to $650 billion, but inflation jumps to maybe 5%. That forces the Fed to hike interest rates, making mortgages, loans more expensive.
Okay, hypothetical 2028. Does the focus shift?
Maybe it becomes more sector-specific, like tariffs jump to 60% on green energy tech to counter China. Pharmaceuticals see 100% tariffs on generics to boost U.S. production.
But maybe some relief elsewhere.
Yeah, perhaps agriculture tariffs get cut by 5% for allies like Australia. Revenue hits $700 billion. But the cost? Middle-class households see maybe a 3% real income loss because prices keep rising faster than wages.
And public reaction?
Probably split, right? You'd see arguments online, on X, warnings about stagflation versus praise for new manufacturing jobs in protected sectors.
Divisive. And then, looking further out, 2029, 2030 in this scenario, stabilization or trade war?
Good question. Maybe tariffs stabilize for most partners, say 15-20%. New trade deals could bring exemptions, but high tariffs, like 50%, stick on strategic goods from perceived adversaries.
What about the overall impact on trade in the economy?
Global trade volume might drop, say 4%. The U.S. trade deficit could narrow by 20%, achieving one goal. Revenue kind of plateaus, maybe $680 billion.
And jobs versus inflation?
GDP growth slows down, but maybe domestic manufacturing adds 500,000 jobs. So, a win there. But inflation is still nagging, maybe 4%. And the public is getting tired of rising costs. Discontent grows.
Wow, that's quite a detailed hypothetical journey. But it really helps visualize the potential chain reactions, doesn't it?
Yeah, just thinking it through step by step.
So, summarizing the potential outcomes from that kind of scenario. Revenue-wise, yeah, you could see $600–700 billion annually. It would help offset tax cuts, but maybe not hit that huge $5.2 trillion long-term guess if trade volumes shrink.
And the money would go where? Infrastructure? Defense?
Presumably. Infrastructure, defense, maybe debt reduction, but fundamentally, it's often funded by higher prices for consumers.
Right. The economic costs seem pretty widespread in that scenario.
Definitely. Consumer prices rising 2–5% a year hits lower, and middle-income folks hardest. Their budgets get squeezed. Inflation at 4–5% means the Fed keeps rates higher, impacting housing, business investment.
And while some industries might benefit,
others get hurt badly by supply chain chaos and retaliation from other countries. It's not a uniform impact.
And globally, how would the world react?
Well, allies would be scrambling to negotiate, trying to get exemptions, avoid the worst of it. China, maybe the BRICS nations, would likely retaliate more strongly, risking wider trade wars.
And U.S. influence?
Could potentially decrease, right? If partners feel the U.S. is unreliable or overly aggressive, they might look towards regional trade blocs, other major economies for stability.
And the big challenges overall.
Just constant economic instability, the risk of a full-blown global trade war, legal challenges here at home over presidential power, and significant geopolitical fallout, potentially reshaping alliances. It's a lot.
A lot indeed.
So, as we kind of wrap up thinking about all this, tariffs, global shifts, potential futures, we always want to stress our goal here is just to lay out the information objectively.
Absolutely.
Explore the possibilities. We're not here to criticize any country or group or policy, really. It's about giving you the facts, the context, so you can form your own conclusions, purely for exploration.
Well said. And if I had to pick one analogy for this whole tariff addiction idea, it's like that saying about potato chips, right?
Yeah.
Bet you can't eat just one. It feels a bit like that.
Yeah.
One tariff leads to another, maybe impossible to stop. Annual adjustments could fill the government's coffers. But consumers' wallets might be crying out for mercy. It's definitely a dynamic to keep a close eye on.
For sure.
We really hope this conversation gave you some things to think about, maybe sparked some curiosity about how all these global pieces fit together. And hey, don't forget to subscribe to Sip&Talk wherever you get your podcasts.
Yes, please do. And also make sure you check out our good friend Mickey's YouTube channel. It's called Mickytolife. He's got great stuff, fun memes, music, amazing travel vlogs. And of course, you absolutely cannot miss Mickey's latest wine tasting videos.
Definitely check out Mickey. Thanks everyone for tuning in.